Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on a pandemic project. We're still in that, and special thanks to all of the frontline workers and essential personnel that have been working so hard and so vigilant to keep us safe. While we're doing that, we're trying to keep up, keeping everybody else entertained who's been self-quarantined or staying at home and trying to do their part. And today we're going to work on one that's an interesting one. I've never had this reel on my desk. This is a Mustad, and of course we know Mustad from the hooks. This one is a Mustad Ultra. It's an 8, 10, 12 pound reel, so it's in the 30 class. So it's a good reel to have kind of large ponds, rivers, inshore like bays and inlets in the salt water. Not big enough, I don't think, to go for the larger saltwater species, but certainly enough to fight an ice bass or something like that. So we're going to start by doing a couple of things. We'll take the exterior pieces off first. I'm going to start with the handle. There's no real rhyme or reason. Sometimes I'll take the spool off, sometimes I'll take the handle off. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you take account of what you're doing along the way. In this case, I'm taking pictures. I don't have a schematic for this reel, so I'm taking pictures of it so that I know as I disassemble where the pieces and parts go if I get lost in the process. I like to put those handle screws right back into the handle, that way I don't lose them. We'll come up top here and we'll take the spool off. And then we'll see what this reel is made of. It came from a distributor, so it should be a new reel, at least a new reel or a customer return. It's a metal spool. That's nice. A lot of the low-end reels, and I'm not saying this is low-end, I don't know the pricing on it, but a lot of the low-end reels would have a plastic spool. Then we have the red piece is a shim washer that accounts for spool height on the stroke. The bottom is a click ratchet, which works when this little spring here clicks on it when that spool is going in reverse. All right, I'm going to take the nut that holds the rotor on off. Find the right one. It looks like a 10 millimeter. Now I just did a video before. This one, like that reel, is a counter thread. So instead of taking this off counterclockwise, you take it off in the clockwise direction. So you'll find if you go to remove it in the traditional sense and it's tightening, don't panic, reverse it, and that's generally what's happening there. They've got it counter threaded. Okay, the rotor comes off, and in this case we have a reel that has a traditional sawtooth anti-reverse as opposed to an instant anti-reverse. So this little dog here, this plastic dog, is going to intersect with these saw teeth to stop that. It also has a spring on here on an eccentric, kind of hard to tell because this is a black piece here, but there is a spring here. That spring goes in the fork on this dog, and I can't tell you how many times I get requests from folks that said, I've been working on my reel, I took it all apart, and now the anti-reverse doesn't work. And 9 times out of 10, if this is the setup, it's because the spring wasn't reloaded properly, and it works on. You'll see how it throws it out when you go to stop. If that spring's not there, it won't throw it out. If it doesn't throw it out, it won't intersect with the saw teeth. Okay, I'm not going to take the bearing out or this assembly off because it's a new reel. The bearing is right here. If you needed to remove the bearing, you would have to take that dog off, and then you would take those 2 screws in the body off as well. So I'm just going to flood that bearing with oil, and then we're just going to close this one right back up. We'll just take it and we'll put it right back on. Remember what we said about this one. It was a reverse thread, so when you go to put this back on, you are actually threading counterclockwise, which is kind of odd, but not odd for fishing reel manufacturers. Just feels odd feel to everything you know. Is most of our life we've been taught righty-tighty and lefty-loosey. And in this case, it's the reverse. Okay, then the click ratchet goes on. There was actually 2 of these little shim washers that go on top of the click ratchet. So if you find that your spool is got a lot of line gathering to the top and not so much on the bottom, it means you have too few washers here, and you have to bump that up so that the spool height raises to allow the spooling below. If you find that you got all the line on the bottom and none on the top, you have to reduce down those shim washers. And most manufacturers will provide you with an additional shim washer or two to help you along the way with that. Okay, I'm going to leave this off for a moment. We'll go back up top here, see what the drag system is in a moment. Okay, so now what I did, and the reason why I was able to put this back on, I noticed when I first took this reel apart, or took a look at this reel, that we have what I'll call a split case. This case can be removed without removing the rotor part. If you look up and you don't see that you have a line here, then you're going to have to remove that rotor in order to get the case off. We're just going to take this open and we're going to see how we do here in terms of what the gears look like, what the ball bearing situation may be, and so on. So I'm guessing this reel is probably in the $20 to $30 range. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. As I mentioned, I'm familiar with Mustad in terms of making fishing hooks. I'm not familiar with it in terms of making fishing reels. But a lot of times this is what's called brand extension, where a manufacturer is going to go out and they're going to just have a job lot manufactured and just use their name, but they're not making the reel. Somebody else is, and I don't know enough of the history of this one to know who it is that's making it. Probably made in China and probably made by somebody who just makes a lot of different brand names. So they're seeking to capitalize on their brand name, and that's kind of how these things get sold. All right, I just was noticing as I was taking this out, the clips up top here. You have to pull that screw in order to get the bump guard off. I was just looking, you have to treat that gingerly because you can break that bump guard very easily. Well, here's a case here that's not atypical of a new reel. It's nice to see that there's a second ball bearing here, and actually I'm looking at the rotor now. It says 2 ball bearings. We have a ball bearing on this side of the reel. This reel's dry, and for a new reel that's kind of unusual. You would think that it would be better lubed. But here's the thing, right? It's been sitting in a warehouse. It's probably made in China and took a trip on a boat. It probably was manufactured months ago, if not more. And all of that leads to the evaporation of the greases and the puddling of it, if you will, in terms of you may find it somewhere like on the bottom of the main gear. In this case, we don't have much grease at all on this. And so some folks say, geez, it's a new reel, why are you taking it apart? Well, this is why I'm taking it apart. Because, one, I can, and two, I just like to make sure that it's well lubed and ready for catching fish, and I don't need anything to break or start to wear prematurely because the grease had dried up or evaporated. All right, nice drink of oil onto the bearing. We can replace the cap then. And then the only other thing I want to check then is the drag setup on this. And the reason I do that is some of these washers drag washers require no maintenance whatsoever, like Teflon washers. They're petrochemical type washers. They can self-lubricate. Some of these are like felt washers and they require oil, and some of them are fabric washers like an HT100 or that, and those are good to use drag grease on. So I always want to make sure that I can service those and make sure that those are ready as well. Okay, so we're going to just put the bump guard in. We inserted the clips first. Now we're just going to grab the screwdriver and make sure that that bump guard is attached firmly. And I had a little extra grease there. It's not going to be problematic for anybody. We can take the handle and put that back in at this point. So it's an attractive little setup. The blue and the silver is a nice looking reel. And I've heard an interesting one the other day. I was reading an article in Fishing Retailer magazine. It's a magazine that's for the trade for tackle resellers. And reading an article in there, and I've always said that this is a fashion industry where the reel technology doesn't change too much, just the coloring of the reels and the like. And they actually gave me another statement that I think is right too. They called it a passion industry. In other words, people become passionate about a particular brand, and in that case, you got brand loyalty, but what you don't have is an open mind in terms of what a good alternative or a better alternative may be for the product. So they were always saying if you can inspire passion in a particular brand, you will be very successful. Okay, these look like we have felt washers in them. We do. Okay, so we have 3 metal and 2 felt. So what that means is there's a bottom washer here that goes as the initial set, like that. Then you have the first felt, and felt washers get oil. That keeps them flexible. And on a reel this size, felt washers is perfectly acceptable. Don't think that it's somebody just trying to take a cheap way out. It's not. It's an acceptable type of a drag washer. There's plenty of manufacturers out there that use that technology, including Penn and Shimano. So it's not it may be a way to save money, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad washer setup. I know there are folks, Penn Fierce for example, Penn Fierce 2, they've changed it for the Penn Fierce 3, but Penn Fierce 2 and Penn Pursuits had felt washers, and the folks that were using that in saltwater for big predator fish were tearing them up because they would certainly tighten the drag down as far as it could go, and then what would happen is the movement of the drag would bind that felt washer and rip it up. The Penn Fierce 3 has now gone over to the HT100, which is the same washer that's used in the Penn Battle, and the folks with the Penn 2s or the original Penn Fierces or Pursuits can make that upgrade. They don't need to stay with the felt if they find that they're tearing them up. Okay, so we just put a drop in each one of the slots for the bail. You don't need to take the bail off when servicing a reel. Also puts them up top, but I'm sure that's not a roller bearing. And that's a nice smooth little reel. So even though it's made by a job manufacturer somewhere carrying a major brand in terms of Mustad as a brand extension, no shame in this reel. This reel can certainly go fishing. It's got the 2 ball bearings, and I like the setup on it. It's attractive from a coloration standpoint, and I think this one is destined to fish for quite some time. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. If you have a reel that you are working on, that you're stuck on in terms of a repair, then why don't you shoot me a note. I'll try and help get you unstuck. And if you have a reel that needs to be repaired and you don't have the time or the talent to do that, I do repair reels by mail. And if you follow the business card and contact me at the email address, I can get you the information on reel repair. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.